Hey guys, and welcome back to my husband's YouTube channel. Just kidding. That was a joke. I do post my podcast on YouTube now, though. You can just search Mallory Jo Mindfulness or Mindful of You podcast. Honestly, I don't know what'll help it pop up. My SEO is pretty bad for some reason. But anyway, I say welcome back to my husband's YouTube channel because we changed the setup so that my setup looks the same as his so that we don't have to move things around in our apartment as much. And now I feel like I'm on his YouTube channel. But for realsies, welcome back to the Mindful of You podcast. This is episode 29, Stop Shoulding on Yourself. Yeah, I know. A little bit of a funky title, getting a little goofy with it, but it'll be a good episode, I promise. So stick with me here. So, I just want to talk for a second about my first experiences with should or shoulding. I am referring to the word should, like I should go to the store. I should exercise. I should whatever. So that's what I'm referring to here in this episode. I'm going to talk about how we overuse the word should and how it doesn't create great thoughts for ourselves and how it doesn't really help us reach our goals as much as we think it might. So I'm going to talk about how using should is holding us back. And I'm going to talk about 3 different categories. I'm going to talk about jobs and careers, relationships, and healthy habits. So starting out with jobs, there's a lot of messaging out there about what you should and shouldn't do for work. There's a lot of people who say you should do your dream job. A lot of people who say you shouldn't worry about your dream job. You should just worry about making enough money. There's a lot of people who say you shouldn't worry about money. You should worry about doing something fulfilling or that's going to help people. And no matter what your thoughts are on it or what your general belief around careers or jobs is, I want to help teach you how to figure out what it is you want out of a career and what you want out of a job. So currently, I'm an academic advisor, and I talk with students a lot about what they want to do for a job. And I think a lot of them would love it if I would just tell them exactly what they quote unquote should do. I don't do that because that's not my job. Sometimes I do that with their classes. I say, you should take this class, because it's going to check off a box on their graduation degree. But as far as the bigger picture stuff goes, I can be a sounding board, but it is up to them. So I've heard a few different things. A lot of times it comes from parents. Students will say, well, my parents think I should do med school because that's going to make me a lot of money and I'm passionate about healthcare or something like that. Other students will say, I'm coming back to school because I thought I should do something that would make money, but now I want to do what I'm passionate about. And they're coming back to study usually something within the arts. So there's a lot of messaging out there telling you how you should live your life and what decisions you should make. So I just want to throw out some questions and some thoughts about this to help you lift that should. First and foremost, there is not anything you should or shouldn't do in regards to your job. I know that that's a blanket statement as well, but if you have some sort of messaging in your head that says, I should do this and it feels resistant and not exciting, then that's probably not serving you. Like, for example, if you have this thought in your head of like, I should be making more money, that's going to make you kind of feel bad, and it's not necessarily going to drive that abundance. Now, even a simple switch from I should to I want can potentially be better, depending on what feeling that's driving. If you're switching from I should make more money to I want to make more money, that could potentially create more positive actions for you. Another thing I hear a lot, especially from women that I advise, is they say, well, I should do something that works well for being a mom, or I should do something that works well with a family. Now, I have a lot of personal thoughts about this that I'm going to try not to let cloud the general message here. I'm going to try to keep things neutral as much as I can. But I just want you to ask yourself, if that's one of the thoughts you have, do you like your reasons for having it? So if you think I should do something that works well with a family, does that feel good? If it does, great. There's no problems there. If it feels like you're trapping yourself, or like now your options are really limited, or you feel any sort of resentment towards your partner because of that, that's where I want you to start questioning that thought a little bit. Who told you that? Why did they tell you that? And then beyond that, what constitutes working well with a family? So, for example, a lot of women I know are teachers because they get summers off. So while their kids are in school, they can be home. Great. And that works really well for some women, and some women really like that. And some men really like that. For other people, I know for me, that was a job I was heavily considering a lot because of that reason. And then when it came down to it, I was like, I don't want to be a teacher. I just don't want to. It seems like a lot of work. Doesn't seem like it's for me. I don't want to be a teacher. Not all my teachers out there. No judgment. I heavily respect what you do. It is hard work despite having summers off. I know that you guys put in so many hours, so much work, and we need teachers. And in my opinion, you're not paid enough. But that's my thought. So you don't have to adopt that if it makes you feel bad. So a lot of people tell themselves, I should do something that works well with a family. Now, something that I always struggled with is I always felt like I received that messaging, but men didn't necessarily receive that messaging. And this is where we're diving into some of my opinions. And if you disagree, that's 100% fine. But to me, child rearing responsibilities and household responsibilities belong to both parents. Now, in single parent households, obviously that's a completely different situation. And again, good on you. I totally admire you. But for a traditional household where there are two people, I generally think that the child rearing responsibilities and the household responsibilities should fall on both partners. And so to me, it was always frustrating that I felt like I was limiting myself, while men who grew up in my same culture didn't place those same limits on themselves. Now, there are other limits that men place on themselves, usually having to do more with money. So they would say, well, I can't do that. It doesn't make enough money. I need to make, double an average salary so that my wife can stay home and take care of children. And so it's just never been my favorite mindset that the load is split that way. If it does work out like that with you and your partner, that's fine. But I also, if you're in your earlier stages of life, or even if you're in your later stages of life and potentially considering a career change, I just want you to consider some of the things about like what it means to do something that works well with a family. Because maybe it ends up being something that does require maybe more hours, but it like allows your husband to work a more flexible job so that you both can have time with kids and with family, rather than just one partner having that time at home. Or maybe you do something that is a lot of evenings. So yeah, you're missing out on evenings, but you get time during the day. Or you do something that just is, you're able to make it work. I just think that you can make anything work if you want to. And yeah, maybe you're just the type of person who doesn't want to work 12 hours a day, and that's totally fine. But figure out what things are you saying wouldn't work well with a family, and actually think through it and think about, well, why doesn't it work well? Like, could it work well? And if it's something that you're really passionate about, I would encourage you to at least consider pursuing it. And maybe there's a time of your life where you don't do it, when children are young or something like that, but you can at least start preparing for it so that you have something you're passionate about and something to look at afterwards, after those kids are grown. So something else I've heard before is that you should do something that's your dream job or something that you're really passionate about. I do think, it's ideal to like what you do, but you can be passionate about anything, or you can like anything, because those feelings come from our thoughts. So, for example, one of my husband's favorite jobs was he was a janitor at an elementary school. And the reason he really liked it was because he found it really relaxing to listen to podcasts and to clean. And he was working with a lot of teenagers who thought he was fun and funny, and he thought they were fun and funny. And so he ended up really enjoying that job, despite the fact that it didn't pay a lot and it wasn't very prestigious or anything like that. He loved it. He just thought it was super fun. So I would encourage you to also take a look at your current job. And are you telling yourself you should be doing something, more prestigious, or you should be doing something you're more passionate about? And that doesn't mean I'm telling you that you can't change your circumstances and do something that you're more interested in or more passionate about. But it's not good to change from the should mindset, because then it feels like you're telling yourself what to do, and no one likes being told what to do. And so if you can get to a place where it's like, I like where I am, but I think I'd also like to be somewhere else. It feels natural for humans to want to hate where they are in order to get where they want to be. But the transition is more seamless and less dramatic if you can like where you are and simply move to where you want to be because that's where you'd like to be. It's less drama, but it's usually more effective. So that's kind of my general messy thoughts about jobs and careers. I'm in the middle of making some career and job decisions right now. Something I had always told myself was that I needed something really flexible, and I needed something that would be okay for my mental health. So this was a belief I had, and I still believe to an extent that that's true. But when I first started working my full-time job, I was convinced that I wouldn't be able to do it. I thought I would have to call out sick too much, that I was going to be, too mentally ill to do my job well. And that has not been true. I've shown time and time again that I'm very capable of my job, and I really love it. And so for me, then it's tempting to be like, okay, good, this is safe, I'm going to do this forever. But it doesn't pay as much as I would like to get paid. I do have certain standards of what my time is worth, and I would encourage you to think about that as well. And I feel like my time is worth more. And so I, at least for the time being, have decided to pursue my education a little bit further. And I'm preparing to do a master's program in clinical and mental health counseling and eventually be a therapist. I would really like to work with individuals who, struggle with their mental health. But I also think it would be a really good thing for me. It would be, a fair salary. I feel like I would be compensated well. And I also think I would enjoy the work I'm doing. Something else to realize is that every job is going to have ups and downs. There's no job that you're going to enjoy 100% of the time, even if it's your dream job. So if you're telling yourself you should be working something else more prestigious, or that's your dream job, but you don't actually want to change jobs, allow yourself to know that even if you were in that other position, you would still have times where you didn't like that job. So I think that's more where I'm coming from, is you need to ask yourself questions to figure out what you want to do, not what you should do. And that's where should becomes dangerous, because it doesn't leave room for you to figure out what you actually want. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was shoulds within relationships. So something I find really amusing, and I used to get really heated about, but now I find it amusing, is I guess like relationship TikTok or relationship Instagram. People really like to show off their relationships on Instagram and on TikTok, and people like to see them shown off. I mean, I'm using that word lightly. It gets a lot of engagement. People don't always necessarily like what they're seeing, and you can tell that from opening one comment section that not everybody likes what they see from couples. But basically what this can create is a dynamic in your marriage or in your relationship where you find yourself thinking that your relationship should be different than it is, or that your partner should be different than they are. Now I'm going to talk about some things that I know have affected me and the way I view my marriage. And I'm interested to see what you guys can relate to as well. But keep in mind, I whenever I address relationships, I'm talking about like generally healthy relationships. If you ever think you're in like an abusive relationship or something like that, I encourage you to use like a domestic abuse hotline, and get out of that situation as soon as you can. I'm referring to relationships that are messy, have their ups and downs, but are generally healthy, just two people who struggle sometimes. So, um, basically, um, a lot of these Instagram couples are posting what are their highlights. And sometimes when you see their highlights, you think, I wish my husband would do that for me. Or I wish my wife was that way. I wish my spouse, showed their love for me in that way. Or like, and then wish turns into should. So all of a sudden it becomes your expectation of like, well, this other guy on Instagram does it. Why doesn't my husband do that? So I have a specific couple. I'm actually going to use this as an example. Absolutely no hate towards this couple. I actually think a lot of the content they make is really healthy and really great. And anything toxic that comes from it is coming from the way we interpret it. I don't think that they're putting any toxic or bad things out into the world or anything like that. I just think that it's easy to interpret their content in a way that makes us feel bad. So this couple's named Maya and Hunter. I stumbled upon them because they recently rewatched Gilmore Girls, and I'm obsessed with Gilmore Girls, if you didn't know that. And Hunter Hunter and Maya, I should say, are very attentive spouses. I think they dated in high school. They've been married for 2 years. And they're very cute. They're a very cute couple. Some of the things that Hunter does for Maya, I'm like, wow, that is like above and beyond. And I started to feel like, oh, I kind of wish like my spouse would do that stuff for me. And so some examples are like Hunter like makes her coffee every day. I don't personally drink coffee, but I just thought that was really sweet. I was like, oh my gosh, makes her coffee every day. That's so nice. And then he also like brings her flowers a lot, gives her lots of gifts. He plans her like really extravagant birthday parties and stuff like that. And I'm like, dang, that's like super cool. And then like when I was thinking about this podcast and I was thinking about talking about Maya and Hunter, I was like, okay, Mallory, so like where are you using a should and not what you actually want? So it was becoming to the point where like my husband should be more like this. But then I would think about it more and I'm like, do I actually even want that? I'm like, one, I just said I don't even like coffee. And then two, like I don't think I actually want everything he does for Maya. Like it's very sweet, don't get me wrong, but I was like, oh, I actually think I would start to feel a little like smothered, like me personally. And so, like I said, I'm no way trying to talk down to them. I'm just trying to help you see like why it's silly to say like you should receive this sort of treatment. Now, if you're being treated, poorly in any way, that's a different story. But what I'm referring to is just like general fancy or extra stuff that couples do from one another that you start expecting in your relationship. Now, maybe you're not like me. Maybe this sounds awesome and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I want my husband to bring me flowers every day. I want this and this and this." You are more than welcome to make that request with your partner. Now, the problem is it's just a request. We can't control our partners and what they want to do. And you might find that the request doesn't feel like as good. And so if they do it, you're going to be like, well, they just did that because I told them to, or I asked them to. And that might not feel as good. So if you want to see some more like immediate improvements in your relationship, before I would start making requests, I would start getting to a more healthy place where you recognize all your partner already does to love you. Now, you might be in a spot where that's difficult to see, but I would encourage you to think about the ways where they're showing you love and you may not even notice it. And it may not be in a way that you typically like to receive love, but it might be the way that they show love. And if you get to the point where you know your partner loves you, then you can have a more healthy conversation with them where you say some other things you'd like to see to express love, and ask them too. Ask them what you can be doing to express your love for them as well. They may not want to, or they may try it and it may not stick for them because it might just might not be them. Not every man is the same. They're not all going to operate the same way and want to express things in this romantic fashion. So it just depends on the couple. And I know this kind of thing is hard to express because I can already see if like that was an Instagram reel or something like popping up in the comments and people would be like, oh, so you're saying you should just let yourself get treated badly? Like, no, I'm 100% not saying that. What I'm saying is you can't control another person. And so you need to decide what really is important to you. What do you actually want? And then what's not actually that important to you. And if you really are unhappy in your relationship, you're always welcome to, excuse yourself from that relationship. But I know my audience because I know myself. And I know most of you, that's not what you want. You don't want to leave. You would just like to see, some more romance or something like that. But if you're not going to leave, allow yourself to love your partner how they are, because you're only going to make yourself miserable if you insist on seeing the things you wish they were doing more of or wish they were doing better. It'll make yourself and it'll make them a little bit more miserable. So if you love your partner and you want to stay and you think you're being treated well for the most part, allow yourself to go against those typical relationship advice things and allow yourself to see the good in your partner and in your relationship, and drop the should, because you can't control anybody else. Okay, my last thing I want to talk about with the should is healthy habits. I've heard this all the time. I think I did a coaching session with a friend where she was talking about how she should wake up earlier. I don't remember what time she was waking up, but it doesn't matter. And I remember telling her that whatever time she was waking up, I remember I was waking up later. And she had a lot of negative thoughts about herself because she was waking up like late-ish. Like she was like, oh, I'm unproductive, I'm lazy, I'm da 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 da. I'm like, okay, well, you know me and I'm waking up later. Like, so do you think that about me? And yeah, that sounds like, oh, whoa, but she was like, no, like you do so much. You're so like accomplished. Like you are accomplishing so much. I'm like, yeah. And I sleep in, and so I just, what healthy habits are there that you're telling yourself you should be implementing, and why are you telling yourself you should? What's the thought behind it? If you're not exercising, are you saying I should be exercising because you don't like your body? Are you saying I should be exercising because society tells you should exercise? I mean, I'm personally a proponent of exercise. I think it helps my mental health. And I like exercise, but I know that you're never going to get to the point that you like exercise as long as you're telling yourself you should be doing it. If you're sitting there telling yourself, oh, like sitting on the couch, I should get up, I should do this, I should go running, you're even if you do it, you're not going to like it and it's not going to stick. So you have to get to the point where you figure out what you actually want and not just what you should do. And a lot of your shoulds probably are wants, but just the energy or the feeling behind them are negative or they're shameful, which is why you have to get okay with where you are right now. So an example I like to use, I think I learned it from Jody Moore, probably. I learned everything from her, is that of a GPS. So basically, when you need to navigate somewhere, your GPS needs to know where you are. But your GPS also has absolutely zero judgment about where you are and where you're going. So, they need to know those two things, where you are and where you're going. And it's the same thing with anything we want to change or improve about ourselves, is we need to know where we are and where we want to go. Now, usually the GPS doesn't say, oh, you moron, you're like 2.5 hours away. No, your GPS doesn't care where you are. And so it's important for us to recognize where we are within these habits we want to create and not judge it. Like, for example, if we have a goal of waking up earlier, if we have a goal of waking up at 8 a.m. and we currently wake up at 9 a.m., it's important to know that we wake up at 9 a.m., why we might be waking up at 9 a.m., and what we can do to fix it. But we have to strip the shame from that. Now, I'm not saying no change happens from shame. I know a lot of people feel like they have more success, with like weight loss and things like that if they like tell themselves how much they hate their body. But like, that's such a painful way to get there. And it doesn't have to be like that. You can look in the mirror, be okay with who you are, and still choose to try and like change how that looks if you would like it to look different. It's going to feel very weird for a while because we're so used to hating ourselves into change. But you really don't have to do that. And so I'd encourage you to see the places where you're trying to make a change in your habits. And what are you telling yourself? Are you being super mean? Because you don't have to be. And as you lighten up a little bit, things will become less heavy. They'll become less dramatic. They'll become less intense. So that might feel a little bit weird. But I promise you can still, set those same goals, make those same changes. You just won't feel crappy while you do it. So anyway, those are my thoughts on should. I now feel like I should have broken this down into like 3 different episodes. So maybe I will later because I feel like that was a lot. And I really like talking about all of these topics. So yeah, let me know what you think. You're always welcome to DM me on Instagram at Mallory Jo Mindfulness. Please leave a 5-star review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. And yeah, I think that's all. You have a great week. Bye.